Hi, everybody. Welcome. We have Stacy with us today. She's with Secret Aardvark, which is really one of the top five coolest names for a brand that I've ever heard. It's right up there with the podcast in terms of cool names. I've been a big fan for a long time, so I'm excited to be able to talk about this. Stacy, great to have you on the show. I think this will be an interesting story. So, Secret Aardvark just celebrated its 20th birthday, according to the packaging. How did you get from there to here? What was the last 20 years like of Secret Aardvark's origin story?
Ooh, it's been a lot, and I do mean a lot. What people don't realize is that we're still a very small company, even after 20 years. People think, oh, I see you everywhere. You must be huge. We are not. There are seven of us. I don't manufacture myself, so I have a couple co-mans that we use. That helps keep the size small, but we're a small company. Not as small as we used to be, maybe, but we're small. Yeah.
Well, and that's like sometimes that is by choice, right? Like you've made a focused, I want to say, a choice to focus on quality and to
Mhm.
focus on growing sustainably from what I can see. I mean, was it hard for you to say no to certain opportunities early on?
It truly was. I mean, when you think about 20 years ago, had just come out of the farmers market and went into retail. So we were very small, um, delivering out of the back of the pickup truck in boxes that were mixed and matched from cash and carry. So you might get your 12 bottles in a green bean box. Uh, but the world was different back then. You didn't have to have all the case labeling. And so, some ways, it was easy to be that company. And it was hard at that time to say no because we just didn't have the production ability. We didn't have the revenue. We've never taken an investor. So um, it's always been self-funded. And that certainly limited us early on. My late husband and I started this, like it says, 20 years ago. And he was an amazing chef and a musician, and in general, a handful, as chefs and musicians are. Uh, and he got sick in 2009 and passed in September of 2009. So I just thought, it'd be this cute little business, and I had a day job. That's how we stayed funded. I had a day job. Uh, my background's healthcare, right? And so I ran some contracts, and that's how we stayed funded. And I thought it'd be cute and little. And after I took it on, I thought, oh, I can do this on evenings and weekends. I used to deliver to Whole Foods local in a suit because I was delivering on my way to work, and they're like, "Wow, you guys pay your delivery people a lot." And I'm like, "I'm the owner." So no, but it was hard when that came, when Whole Foods came, that first order, right? I delivered in the back of the van. I knew so little that I took it to the warehouse in Seattle in the back of my van. I didn't realize I don't have a lift gate. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to unload this. It was my dog and I in the car, right? And I unloaded two pallets by hand
Wow.
onto their loading dock. And that was probably 3 months after he passed. So,
Wow.
and we had a lot of those opportunities, many of which I had to say, I can't do that. I don't have the production for that, or I don't have the revenue for that.
Yeah.
So we carefully chose where we felt like we had the biggest opportunity to grow. But it hasn't always been easy to say no.
Yeah, for sure. So over the let's fast forward a little bit over the past several years post COVID now. How's the landscape of the business changed past, since COVID
Yeah.
for your category? I mean, I'm a big hot sauce fan. It had a lot of impact on food consumed at home versus away from home. And has that been a positive for you, for your business?
During COVID, it was great because everybody needed something because they didn't, they had rice and beans and they didn't know what to do with it. We could fix that. Post COVID, it's been a lot tougher. Um, People are have more opportunities. Our categories gotten much, much bigger. I think back to the days 15 years ago when there were truly, when you look at artisan sauce or sauce that isn't your typical water, salt, vinegar sauce, right? And I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
Um, there were three of us in that category. And now there's many, so
Yeah.
many regional sauces as well as national sauces. And it's a lot harder. And that smaller category, or that other category, not smaller, but that other category of not as vegetal, because we're a very vegetable forward sauce, right? Tomatoes, carrots, onions is kind of a standard for us. Um, Once you get past that and you go back to more of that water, salt, dried pepper kind of thing, there's even more. So it went from being like maybe 60 in the category, and post COVID, we're probably at 400 or 500 in the category.
Wow.
I have a theory about that. I think people were home during COVID and they started making hot sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's and it's hard too because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of your product. I'm a fan of hot sauce in general, but it's hard to go through a ton of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like a beverage where you're just drinking the whole can and then you're buying another can. The consumer has the product for a while, so it's hard to fight for shelf space,
It
I would
is.
imagine, in the category, right? Now, a little bit easier if you have this cool blue cartoon aardvark on the label, right? So how did that where did that come from? Because that it is something everybody gets a chuckle out of it whenever they first see the product.
That was my late husband. He named the business.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, do you don't have a like a pet aardvark or anything at home that inspired
I've
that?
got that one,
Okay.
the neon sign,
Yeah.
and I've got a whole bunch of stuffed ones
Oh
that
wow.
people have sent me. And we do have a mascot. We have a about 7 foot tall mascot,
Does he have a
um,
name?
Scooter.
Scooter, so Scooter, right. So at this point, it's a less of a secret, right? Your product has been out there for 20 years.
Yeah,
The recipe is still confidential, I'm sure,
right.
but it's a pretty uh, well-known secret out there at this point. And like, what are you? I mean, it feels to me, from the outside looking in, like you've been very true to the origins of the product, right? Like I can
Yep.
buy, I mean, my favorite is the smoky chipotle. Like I love it. That's my thing. But like to me, I know what I'm gonna get. I love it. I think it's still innovative, even though it's been around for 20 years, because there's a thousand other hot sauces, but they don't taste exactly like that.
Right. Right.
Um, but how do you keep it fresh? I mean, for a brand that's built on like cool and new, how do you still be cool and new when you're not new? What's the like, how do you make that? How do you culturally keep that going?
No, I think that's a really good question and one that we struggle with on an almost daily basis. Somebody called me mainstream recently, and I said, those are fighting words. I'm not mainstream.
Yeah,
Um, but it is hard. And I think a lot of it is we work really hard to try and have opportunities where we can get it in people's mouths, because if you haven't tried aardvark, you don't know how different it is from fill in the blank, right? Any of the big standard names. And and I think that's the key for us is oftentimes we do events, we do things to try and actually get it in people's mouths, right? And people are like, "Oh, that's so cheeky that you say that," but it's the truth. You
yeah,
have to you have to get people to try it. Otherwise, they're like, "Oh, I don't like hot sauce," or I have, like I say, fill in the blank of one of the standard 10 top hot sauces in my cabinet, and I'm like, "No, not the same. So
yeah,
not the same." Right? It's like saying Oh, yeah, I have a beer in my fridge and it's not a craft beer. And I often liken us to, we're like craft beer. It's, we're not your normal pull it out of the grocery store or what you drink when you were, in college. It's a much more sophisticated product than that.
What I think is neat about it is I I really like the taste of habanero,
Me
and
too.
I think a lot of people would, but I think it's just inaccessible to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're not, it's not easy to just go buy habanero peppers, first of all, at the grocery store. But second of all, they're too hot to just pop them and eat them.
Mm-hmm.
And what's neat about Secret Aardvark is that it does taste like habanero. You can
Right.
definitely taste it, but it's not so nuclear hot that you
Right.
can't eat it, right? And I think that's unique. I still think that's unique. I don't know of another hot sauce on the market that does that.
Well, and even the smoky that you held up, that's her mild, and that's a chipotle hub. And when I was building that sauce during COVID, because like everyone else, I had more time on my hands. And when I was building that sauce, I didn't like it. And I was like, what is it that I don't like about this? And I happened to have some habanero mash. And out of simple frustration, I threw in a chunk of habanero mash. And I was like, that's it. There's the missing link. And it's not that I don't like Chipotle, I just don't find it inspiring. But
Right.
add a little habanero to that and it made a whole difference in how that works, right? It brought a sweeter and a little bit hotter flavor than just straight up Chipotle.
Yeah.
So
So what's next? I mean, are you gonna have birthday cake flavor hot sauce? Are you like what's the next what's the twist on this? Or where do you want the brand to be a few years from now?
we are not having birthday flavor hot sauce. It's been suggested as before as well, and I'm like, no, no, thank you. I think we've got some new products coming out the end of this year and early next year. I think we're going to try and keep things interesting. I mean, let's face it, the habanero will, I think, forever be the one that most people know and most people try and most people have in their pantry, right? But I think that this category, because it has been around and it has been growing and there is so much opportunity, I think that we've got to find ways to keep people interested. So we'll have some new things coming out this year.
Cool. Well, we're excited to be working with you at Pod Foods. I think for us, we're all about opening path to market. We want to just make it accessible for a brand like this to make it into the market or stay in the market with as little friction as possible.
Yep.
And it's really cool for us to be able to see. I mean, this is a brand that, in terms of my career, I grew up with, right? Like I've known this as a career foodie for almost 20 years. And it's like
Yep.
for us to be able to work with that kind of a brand and help sustain it from a distribution side is really exciting for us. So we're excited. We wish you really well. We want to see your product grow into more accounts, but not too fast so that you can still stay true to what you built. But we want to help you get there.
Well, we're excited to be working with Pod Foods.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.